70, 74, 76. No, I'm not playing a game of I'm thinking of a number or trying to hike a football. Those are the ages of Sonia Sotomayor, Sam Alito, Clarence Thomas on the United States Supreme Court. Sure, it's a lifetime appointment, but is that really going to happen? And what should happen next? What does it mean for the balance of power on the United States Supreme Court as we are 70 days away from Inauguration Day and the return of Donald Trump? You're on the new Legal AF YouTube channel. There it is. Now more than ever, we need your help. Hit the subscribe button. Build this channel along with us. The bigger we get, the more your voice is heard. And I'm Michael Popok at The Intersection. Let's start with the pressure on the right. The question is whether Leonard Leo, who runs the Federalist Society, to which Donald Trump has completely outsourced, both in his first administration and in his next administration, the selection of federal judges who have all been basically beaten to within an inch of their life and loyalty test to make sure that they don't waver at all from the Federalist Society super right-wing MAGA agenda. Whether Leonard Leo is going to allow Donald Trump to replace Thomas and Alito in order to have a more durable MAGA right future Supreme Court. This was what was at stake, one of the many things at stake on Tuesday that seemed, I guess, complicated to a large number of Americans, not to our audience here on Legal AF and on the Midas Touch Network, of course. We've been talking about this for 4.5 years. Here would be the strategy. Leonard Leo, as the Supreme Court whisperer, runs the Federalist Societies behind the Heritage Foundation. Everybody kisses the ring of Leonard Leo. All of the major oligarchs and right-wing MAGA donors, from the Uline family to the Koch brothers to the Adelson family in Nevada to Elon Musk, all pumps money through Leonard Leo, founder of the Federalist Society and dozens of other similar sounding names for other public interest groups on the MAGA right wing, a friend of Ginny Thomas and the like. He whispers into the ear of Clarence Thomas at 76 and Sam Alito and says, "You've done it all, fellas. You've done what we wanted. You ripped away a woman's right to choose. You opened up gun rights to everybody at every age as a Second Amendment right. You've gotten rid of the major doctrine that we've used that was used to try to give power to the administrative state. We hate the administrative state. You've ripped down the wall between church and state. Now it's time for you to go to the Sleepy Oak rest home for Supreme Court justices on the right." And the reason would be for Donald Trump to be able to put two 40-year-olds, two 45-year-olds into that position for the next 30 years. Think about that. I have a young daughter. She's 4.5 months old. She would be 30 years old or so when these new potential Supreme Court justices that I'm talking about here, that I'm doing as a tabletop exercise if they were appointed. That is the perfect world, if you will, except they'd be losing the institutional knowledge and what comes from being on a court for 30 or 40 years in terms of reliability to the Federalist Society. And that's, I think, potentially making Leonard Leo, and therefore Donald Trump, because Trump reports to Leo on federal judges, hesitant. Because they're thinking, can we find the next reliable Clarence Thomas with intellectual heft from day one to do our bidding? I mean, even Clarence Thomas wasn't Clarence Thomas on day one. He never asked a question on the court for the first 25 years until Donald Trump got in office. I'm not making that up. Look it up. He's asked more questions. He asked more questions about 5 years ago than he had done in 25 years combined. Alito, too. Alito wasn't super MAGA evil genius on day one. It took him a minute. It took him 5 or 10 years, as they say, for Supreme Court justice to get into the swing of things. Ketanji Brown Jackson is an exception. She's a unicorn. She on day one looks like she was, created in a lab to be a Supreme Court justice on the moderate and left side, but she's a anomaly. She's the exception. Most take 3, 4, 5 years. We're sort of seeing something like this with Amy Coney Barrett. I'll talk about her in a minute, who's in the center-left block. I'm sorry, center-right block. I was confused by my camera there for a minute. So that is the Russian roulette that the Republicans and MAGA are playing if they force Thomas and Alito out. Yes, they'll get younger versions, but will they be younger versions, or will they move over time to the moderate side and far away? Now, Gorsuch, who the NRA was a darling of the NRA, and Leonard Leo forced on there through a guy named Mike Davis, who's being proposed to be Donald Trump's attorney general or White House counsel, or maybe on the Supreme Court himself. Gorsuch has gone far hard right. He's even beyond Alito and Thomas. So that was a win for Leonard Leo. Kavanaugh, sort of came in with his own problems, hampered by sex abuse allegations, never really got to where he wanted to, is not as far right as, and reliably far right in MAGA as Gorsuch. Amy Coney Barrett, I think, is a disappointment to Leonard Leo, which means that she's much better for democracy and justice than we had hoped. Sure, she hasn't covered herself in glory. There are plenty of votes that I disagree with her, and she ended up in the majority, never really the tie-breaking vote, but in the majority on things that mattered to me and to the rest of free-thinking America, like the separation of church and state that she tore down or helped to tear down, and she sided with the MAGA majority to rip away a woman's right to choose. But on other issues, she's been reeling back and as she's gotten more confident over this last term, and I expect it to continue. She is our only hope. This is like Star Wars. She's become almost like an evil Obi-Wan Kenobi. We're going to have to aim for her, try to combine her with the 3 votes on the left and get Roberts over occasionally to get anything done in the foreseeable future. So it's not so easy to replace Thomas and Alito. And I think that's, looking at Amy Coney Barrett and Kavanaugh, that's got to give Leonard Leo some pause about it. But I need to talk about it because there is a lot of speculation out there about they're going to immediately put Thomas and Alito in, shady rest home, shady tree rest home for the criminally Supreme Court justices and see what happens, especially since Alito and Thomas have taken a tremendous amount of proper criticism for being unethical, for taking hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars in Thomas's case of undisclosed money and being in bed with the right-wing Federalist Society people, taking millions of dollars of trips with them, selling property to them, lining his pockets while he's been in office, and the rest, including Ginny Thomas, who has business before the court on a regular basis and is super MAGA. Alito also, Alito has fallen in love with the monarchy. It's fallen in love with wearing ermine stoles and little red shoes like he's going to be the Pope. He's fallen in love with this Catholic monarchy thing going on in Europe, where he loves to go every summer and go play with the other monarchs who want to install a kingdom in America. That's Alito, and he's the guy that wrote the Dobbs decision, ripping away a woman's right to choose. It may be time between that and the upside down flags of insurrection being flown at his 2 homes during the last term. It may be time to show him the door. But again, you never know what you're going to get as a replacement when you get rid of those 2 strong voices for right-wing ideals. We got the same problem on the Sotomayor side. There's some pressure, apparently, which is in the wake of some recriminations and hand-wringing against Ruth Bader Ginsburg, of all people, that she stayed too long at the party and died when there was a Republican in office instead of a Democrat. Can't time your death, at least not naturally. And that led to Amy Coney Barrett being stuck in there, right? So there's pressure, a little bit of pressure on Sotomayor. But look, she's only 70. There are plenty, in major law firms in America, they force you out between 65 and 70. Not because, you don't have anything going on upstairs. Just because their capital and equity structure, they got to pay younger people who are bringing in more business. So they got to get the not deadwood, but they got to get the people at the top out. Doesn't mean she's not vibrant. There's no known health condition with Sotomayor. And she is a strong and important voice on the court. Does she get the others that come to her side on a regular basis? Probably not. She's often in dissent, but it's important. And a lot of times what was once in dissent over the time and in history becomes the majority opinion, and they cite back to Sotomayor. I personally don't want to lose her right now in order to have Joe Biden, with 70 days to go before the inauguration, try to cram in a new person that hasn't properly been vetted in record time. We're not ready for it. I mean, there may be a binder somewhere listing potential Supreme Court justices, but we saw what happens when the Democrats at the last minute made a switch and weren't ready for it and didn't properly vet something, okay? So we're living off of that. I don't want to do it again with a Supreme Court justice and get somebody who looks to be like a liberal but becomes overly moderate and starts siding with the right wing while we lose Sotomayor. And the other thing is, it's not going to happen. This Senate, let me put it this way. The Senate Democrats who just lost, who are currently in the majority by a slim margin, only because Joe Manchin from West Virginia caucuses with them, their sphincter, hate to be anatomically crude on this hot take, but their sphincter is shut tight. They are not going to risk any political capital for Joe Biden to try to get a new candidate in to replace a retiring Sotomayor. They're not going to. And they don't have the balls to do it. It would be shocking if I was talking about Republicans trying to shove in Amy Coney Barrett with 36 or 37 days to go in the last administration. Absolutely, they would do it. But the Democrats can't get out of their own way right now. Now is not the time to risk brain surgery on a high wire without a net. I pass, hard pass on us being able to pull that off. Forget it. So leave Sotomayor where she is. She's deserved it. She's only 70. She can wait another 4 years. Others have. She'll be younger than Thomas. He's 76. Leave her alone. Leave her alone. We got other things to focus on. We're going to be in the minority in the Senate, which means we're going to have to use the filibuster if there's any crazy right-wing wacko judges, federal judges, and Supreme Court justices that they're used. If they don't try to take out Thomas and Alito now, sometime during the next administration, these guys could either retire themselves or, through natural causes, get out, or just they decide to resign. But they're not going to do it now. Not going to do it within the first this term coming up for sure. And they always run that risk that the people are not the equal of Thomas or Alito from right-wing MAGA circles. And so I think that they're not doing it either. But there is historically, except for people like Clinton and Biden, there are usually 1 to 3 opportunities during a court. The bad thing about my theory is if I'm wrong, and it happens. I've been wrong before, not often, but it happens. Thomas and Alito do step down in sequence or maybe together, allowing Donald Trump to appoint somebody else. He generally can't appoint a new Chief Justice, and Roberts gave him a solid during the immunity decision, so I don't see him rocking that boat. But if he replaces those two, he will be the first president in history to ever appoint the majority of the court between 2 terms. I mean, there's just no way around it. Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and the 2 replacements, that's 5. That's a majority. No president has ever done that. I mean, there's a lot of unfortunate firsts for Donald Trump, but that would be another one that we'd have to list in his obituary. So I'm going to continue to follow hard, and I've got a great group here. I don't know if you've found them yet on the Legal AF YouTube channel. If I mentioned we need you to subscribe and leave comments here. But Court Accountability Action, amazing public interest group whose sole focus, frankly, is at corruption at the federal court levels, explaining how it happens and try to avoid it and to fight it up to the United States Supreme Court. They're here regularly. Alex Aronson, Lisa Graves, and other contributors. And they have their own playlist right here on the Midas Touch Network. And then Dina Dahl and I do a new show we call Unprecedented. Now you know why we named it that. About every week we do a show about the United States Supreme Court and its recent developments for the new term, which stretches all the way through the summer. And we do the top 4 or 5 stories there. So join us for some exclusive content you can only find on Legal AF in collaboration with the Midas Touch Network. So until my next contribution, I'm Michael Popok, and I am reporting. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.